The screaming started at 3:47 am in the honeymoon suite of Lagos' most prestigious hotel, the Eco Atlantic Pearl. Amara Okafor bolted upright in the king-sized bed, her heart hammering against her ribs as she felt the familiar dampness spreading beneath her. Not tonight. Please, God, not tonight. What is this? Chike's voice cut through the darkness like a machete, his tone filled with disgust and disbelief. The bedside lamp clicked on, flooding the room with harsh yellow light that made everything worse. There it was, the dark stain spreading across the pristine white Egyptian cotton sheets, the acrid smell filling the air between them. Amara's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. After 28 years of hiding this shameful secret, after months of anxiety medication and adult diapers secretly worn beneath her wedding dress, her body had betrayed her on the most important night of her life. I can explain, she whispered, pulling the duvet up to cover herself, but it was too late. Chike was already standing, his muscular frame silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Victoria Island's glittering skyline. Explain what, Amara? That's my wife, pisses herself like a child. His voice rose to a roar that seemed to shake the hotel's marble walls. Do you know what this means? What people will say when they find out? What would you do if this secret was revealed on your wedding night? Hit like if you've ever been betrayed, and comment where you're watching from. 12 hours earlier, Amara had been the picture of elegance walking down the aisle of Lagos Cathedral. Her ivory Vera Wang gown had cost more than most people's annual salaries, a gift from her wealthy pharmaceutical executive father, Dr. Emeka Okafor. The congregation of over 800 guests had gasped in admiration as she glided toward Chike Adebayo, the rising star of Nigeria's tech industry whose fintech startup had just secured $50 million in international funding. Their love story had been the stuff of Nollywood movies, the brilliant doctor's daughter and the self-made tech mogul, both from prestigious Igbo families, both educated abroad, both considered catches in Lagos's elite social circles. Amara had graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Medical School, while Chike held dual degrees from Oxford and Stanford. On paper, they were perfect. But secrets have a way of surfacing when you least expect them, and Amara's had been clawing at her insides for months. The bedwetting had started during her surgical residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. The pressure, the 18-hour shifts, the constant stress, her bladder control had simply vanished one night during a particularly grueling trauma rotation. What began as isolated incidents triggered by extreme exhaustion had evolved into a nightly occurrence that no amount of medical intervention seemed to cure. She'd seen specialists in Boston, New York, and later in London. Urologists, neurologists, psychiatrists, each had theories but no solutions. The psychological evaluations were the worst, probing into her childhood, her relationship with her overbearing parents, her perfectionist tendencies. One doctor suggested it was psychosomatic, her body's rebellion against the impossible standards she'd set for herself. You need to tell him, her sister Kemi had urged during one of their video calls while Amara was still living in Boston. Any man who truly loves you will understand. But understanding and acceptance were two different things, especially in their world of Lagos high society where image meant everything. Amara had watched marriages crumble over smaller scandals, a leaked video here, a financial indiscretion there. How could she risk losing Chike over something so humiliating, so fundamentally unglamorous? Now, standing in their honeymoon suite with urine-soaked sheets between them, she realized her silence might have cost her everything anyway. Chike, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to me for 2 years. That you've been hiding this condition. He ran his hands through his perfectly groomed hair, the same hair she'd lovingly touched just hours ago during their first dance to Davido's 4. My mother warned me. She said there was something off about you, something you were hiding. I defended you. The mention of his mother, Mrs. Chike Adebayo, sent ice through Amara's veins. The woman had never liked her, had made snide comments about Amara being too educated for her own good and not traditional enough. If she found out about this, Your mother doesn't know anything about me or our relationship, Amara shot back, her medical training kicking in as she tried to regain control. This is between us, Chike. It's a medical condition, not a character flaw. Medical condition. Chike laughed bitterly, the sound echoing off the sweet marble bathroom tiles. Is that what we are calling it? And what am I supposed to tell people when they ask why my wife sleeps in a different bed? Why we don't travel together? Why? He stopped abruptly, his eyes widening as realization dawned. Wait. The separate bedrooms during our courtship. Your excuses about traditional values and waiting until marriage. The way you always left early during sleepovers. Jesus Christ, Amara, how long have you been playing me for a fool? The accusation hit harder than any physical blow could have. Playing him for a fool. She'd loved him desperately, completely, had spent sleepless nights terrified that her secret would destroy them. Every moment together had been shadowed by fear, every intimate conversation weighted with the knowledge of what she was hiding. I wasn't playing you, I was protecting. Protecting who? Me or yourself? Chike grabbed his phone from the nightstand, his fingers moving rapidly across the screen. I need to think. I need to. Jesus, I can't even look at you right now. Where are you going? Chike, don't leave, not like this. But he was already gathering his clothes, his movements sharp and angry. The man who had whispered sweet Igbo endearments in her ear during their wedding ceremony was looking at her like she was a stranger, worse, like she was something disgusting he'd accidentally stepped in. As the door slammed behind him, leaving Amara alone with the stained sheets and the acrid smell of her shame, she heard her phone buzzing on the dresser. A WhatsApp message from an unknown number. Saw your husband leaving the hotel looking very upset. Trouble in paradise already. Some secrets are too big to hide forever, Amara. Sleep tight. The Adebayo family compound in Ikoyi buzzed with activity at 7 a.m., but the energy felt different this morning. Mrs. Adoni Adebayo sat in her favorite rattan chair on the veranda, sipping her morning tea and scrolling through her phone with the satisfied expression of a cat who'd caught a particularly fat mouse. Mama, you sent for me. Chike appeared at the compound's gate, still wearing yesterday's wedding suit, now wrinkled and stained with sweat and regret. His eyes were bloodshot, his usually perfect appearance disheveled from a sleepless night spent driving aimlessly through Lagos's empty streets. My son, Adoni rose gracefully, her gold jewelry catching the morning sunlight. At 62, she remained a formidable woman whose approval could make or break social standings in Lagos. Come and sit. You look terrible. The veranda overlooked the family's manicured gardens, where bougainvillea climbed trellises in violent shades of purple and pink. Peacocks roamed freely across the lawn, a symbol of the Adebayo family's prosperity that Adoni insisted on maintaining despite the complaints from neighbors about the noise. I got your message, Chike said, collapsing into the chair beside her. About Amara having secrets that would surface. How did you know? Adoni's smile was sharp as a razor blade. A mother always knows when something isn't right with her son's choice of wife. The question is, what are you going to do about it? She reached into her Louis Vuitton handbag and withdrew a thick manila envelope. Before you answer, you should see this. Inside were medical records, pages and pages of them from hospitals in Boston, New York, and London. Urology consultations, psychiatric evaluations, prescription records for medications Chike didn't recognize. All bearing Amara's name and documenting a condition called nocturnal enuresis, adult bedwetting. Where did you get this? Chike's voice was barely a whisper. Does it matter? What matters is that your wife has been lying to you for 2 years about a condition that will make her the laughingstock of Lagos society. And by extension, make our family the subject of gossip and ridicule. The medical records painted a picture Amara had never shared: years of unsuccessful treatments, medications with humiliating side effects, therapy sessions exploring childhood trauma. One psychiatrist note mentioned severe anxiety around intimate relationships and fear of abandonment stemming from perfectionist family dynamics. She's been suffering, Chike murmured, something resembling sympathy flickering in his voice. Suffering? Adonis' tone was ice cold. She's been deceiving you. Do you know what the Okafor family said when I confronted them about this yesterday? You confronted her family. Chike's head snapped up. Mama, you had no right. I had every right. My son's reputation was at stake. She leaned forward, her gold bangles jangling. Dr. Emeka tried to dismiss it as a minor medical issue. Can you believe the audacity? As if wetting yourself nightly is minor. The morning call to prayer echoed from a nearby mosque, the melodious Arabic mixing with the sounds of Lagos awakening, car horns, generators humming to life, market traders calling their wares. But here in the Adebayo compound, the atmosphere was poisonous. What do you want me to do, Mama? Divorce her. We just got married yesterday. An annulment, Adonis said smoothly. Based on fraud and concealment of material facts. I've already spoken to Barrister Okonkwo. He says it's a straightforward case given that she deliberately hid a condition that affects marital intimacy. Chike stared at his mother, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. The woman who had raised him to be ambitious and successful had also taught him that image mattered more than compassion, that social standing trumped personal happiness. And if I don't? Then you'll live with the consequences. But remember, your company's investors are watching. Your reputation in the tech community matters. Can you afford to be known as the man whose wife pisses herself? What happens when you want to run for office someday? When you want to expand internationally? The threats were delivered with surgical precision. Adonis knew exactly where to apply pressure: his business, his future political aspirations, his standing in Lagos society. Everything he'd worked for could crumble under the weight of whispered jokes and social media memes. She loves me, Mama. And I thought I loved her. Love? Adonis laughed harshly. Love doesn't pay bills or maintain respect. Look at what she's done to you already, made you sneak out of your own honeymoon suite like a common criminal. How long before the hotels start gossiping? Before it reaches the newspapers? As if summoned by her words, the compound's security guard approached with a tablet in hand. Madam, you asked me to monitor the social media platforms. There's something you should see. The tablet displayed a Twitter thread that was beginning to gain traction. Spotted, prominent Lagos tech CEO leaving Eco-Atlantic Port at 4 a.m. on his wedding night. Trouble in paradise. #Lagos Society #wedding drama. The thread included blurry photos of Chike in the hotel lobby, his face twisted with anger and disgust. Within hours, it had dozens of retweets and comments speculating about what could have gone wrong so quickly. You see. Adonis' voice was triumphant. It's already starting. And this is just the beginning. Wait until they find out the real reason. Chike's phone buzzed with notifications, messages from friends, business associates, and family members who had seen the social media post. His company's head of PR was calling, probably wanting to know if there was a crisis management situation brewing. There's something else, Adonis continued, pulling out another envelope. I've been investigating your wife's family. The Okafors aren't as squeaky clean as they pretend. The second envelope contained bank statements, business transactions, and what appeared to be correspondence about questionable pharmaceutical deals. Dr. Amara Okafor's company had apparently been involved in importing unregistered medicines from China, a practice that could destroy his medical license if exposed. Insurance, my dear son. If Amara or her family tries to cause trouble during the annulment proceedings, we have leverage. The morning sun was climbing higher, but the veranda felt cold despite Lagos's perpetual heat. Chike realized he was witnessing a masterclass in manipulation, his mother's web of control tightening around him with each revelation. I need time to think. Time is a luxury we don't have, Adoni replied. Every hour you delay gives her more opportunity to spin this situation to her advantage. To play the victim. To make you look like the villain for abandoning your sick wife. She stood and walked to the veranda's edge, where the morning glory vines climbed the stone pillars. I've scheduled a meeting with Barrister Okonkwo for noon. We can have the annulment papers filed by evening. And what about the wedding gifts? The money people spend to celebrate with us. Refundable. Recoverable. Manageable. Adoni waved dismissively. What's not manageable is the long-term damage to your reputation if you stay married to someone with such challenges. As Chike wrestled with the decision that would define the rest of his life, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Amara's number, but when he answered, it wasn't his wife's voice on the line. Chike Adebayo. This is Kemi Okafor, Amara's sister. We need to talk. Immediately. There are things about your mother you need to know, things that will change everything. The 4 Points by Sheraton in Victoria Island was neutral territory, the kind of place where Lagos's elite conducted delicate business away from prying eyes. Chike arrived first, choosing a corner table in the nearly empty restaurant where the lunch crowd wouldn't arrive for another hour. Kemi Okafor walked in at exactly 11 a.m., her resemblance to Amara striking despite their different builds. Where Amara was petite and graceful, Kemi was tall and athletic, her journalist instincts evident in the way she scanned the room before approaching his table. "Thank you for coming," she said, settling into the chair across from him. Her voice carried the same melodic Igbo accent as Amara's, but her expression was harder, more guarded. "Your sister is devastated," Chike said without preamble. "She's been calling non-stop since yesterday. And you've been ignoring her calls." It wasn't a question. Kemi pulled out her phone and showed him a photo, Amara curled up in their childhood bedroom at the Okafor family home, her wedding dress hanging limply in the background like a ghost. She cried herself to sleep. Again. The image hit Chike harder than he expected. Even with her eyes swollen from tears and her face blotchy from crying, Amara looked fragile and broken in a way that awakened something protective in his chest. "I needed time to think," he said weakly. "Time to let your mother poison your mind, you mean?" Kemi leaned forward, her journalist training evident in her direct approach. "Do you want to know how your mother got hold of Amara's medical records?" Chike's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. "What?" "Your mother hired a private investigator 6 months ago. Not to investigate Amara's condition, she already knew about that. To dig up dirt on our entire family." Kemi slid a USB drive across the table. "Everything's on there. Receipts, email exchanges, payments to the PI. Your mother has been planning this takedown since the day you proposed." The restaurant's air conditioning hummed overhead, but Chike felt sweat beading on his forehead. "How do you know this?" "Because the PI tried to bribe me first. Offered me 50,000 naira to confirm details about Amara's bedwetting and provide additional embarrassing information about our family." Kemi's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "When I refused, he went around me. Bribed a clerk at Mass General Hospital, paid off a cleaning lady at the London clinic. Your mother wanted ammunition, and she got it." The implications crashed over Chike like a Lagos flood during rainy season. His mother hadn't discovered Amara's secret by maternal instinct, she'd engineered this entire crisis. "There's more," Kemi continued. "The social media post about you leaving the hotel? Your mother orchestrated those too. The anonymous photographer was actually the PI's assistant. She wanted to create public pressure, force your hand before you had time to process everything rationally." Chike stared at the USB drive as if it were a snake coiled on the table. Everything he thought he knew about the past 24 hours was crumbling. "Why didn't Amara tell me about her condition?" "Because she was terrified of losing you," Kemi's voice softened. "Do you know what it's like growing up in our family? Our father expects perfection in everything, grades, appearance, achievements. Amara internalized that pressure until it literally made her sick. She pulled out another photo, this one older, Amara at maybe 8 years old, standing rigidly beside their father at some medical conference, her small face serious and anxious. The bedwetting started during her surgical residency, but the anxiety that caused it. That goes back to childhood. Papa's expectations, the constant pressure to be the perfect daughter, the fear of disappointing anyone, it manifested physically. She could have gotten help. He tried. Kemi's voice rose, drawing glances from other patrons. She lowered it again, leaning closer. Years of therapy, medications, specialists. Do you know what one therapist told her? That her body was rebelling against the impossible standards she'd set for herself. That she needed to learn self-acceptance and find people who could love her unconditionally. The word unconditionally hung in the air between them like an accusation. She wanted to tell you, Kemi continued. Planned to, actually. She had it all worked out after the honeymoon, when you were both settled into married life. She thought if you loved her enough by then, you could walk through it together. But my mother. Your mother made sure that conversation would never happen on Amara's terms. She orchestrated this crisis to happen on your wedding night, when you'd be most shocked and least rational. Kemi's journalist instincts showed as she laid out the timeline. Think about it, how convenient that she had all those medical records ready. How quickly she had legal solutions prepared. How she immediately had dirt on our family to use as leverage. Chike's phone buzzed with a text from his mother, meeting with lawyer moved to 10 a.m. tomorrow. Don't delay, every hour makes this more complicated. The sooner we act, the cleaner the break. She's pushing you to make a decision quickly, Kemi observed, reading his expression. That's classic manipulation, create crisis, limit time for reflection, force impulsive action. What about the stuff she showed me? About your father's business. Kemi sighed deeply. Papa made some questionable decisions 5 years ago when his company was struggling. Imported generic medications without proper documentation. It was illegal, but not malicious. He was trying to provide affordable medicines to poor communities. He reported himself to the medical board, paid the fines, implemented new compliance systems. It's old news that your mother is trying to weaponize. The waitress approached to refill their coffee, her curious glances suggesting she recognized them from newspaper society pages. In Lagos's interconnected elite circles, privacy was a luxury few could afford. There's something else you should know, Kemi said after the waitress left. Amara didn't just hide her condition from you. She hid it from everyone, friends, colleagues, even most of our family. Do you know how isolating that is? How lonely? She showed him more photos on her phone, Amara at medical school graduation, at her residency completion, at various professional achievements. In every photo, her smile was perfect but her eyes looked tired, haunted by the secret she carried. She built her entire life around hiding this one thing. Chose careers with irregular schedules so no one would notice her sleep patterns. Avoided overnight trips, intimate friendships, even dating seriously until she met you. You were the first person she'd ever trusted enough to get close to marriage. And I abandoned her the first night, Chike said quietly. Yes, you did. But understanding why makes all the difference. Kemi's voice carried hope now. Your mother manipulated this situation brilliantly, I give her that. But manipulation only works when people don't realize they are being manipulated. Chike picked up the USB drive, its weight somehow heavier than its size suggested. What's on here? Everything. The PI's reports, payment records, email exchanges between your mother and various sources. Evidence that she's been planning this character assassination for months. Kemi's expression hardened. Also some interesting information about your mother's own secrets, financial irregularities in her import business, tax evasion schemes, bribes paid to government officials. The tables had turned. The woman who had presented herself as morally superior to the Okafor family had her own considerable skeletons. What do you want from me? Talk to your wife. Actually talk to her, not about the bedwetting, but about everything. About love, about marriage, about what matters. Kemi stood to leave. And remember, your mother didn't orchestrate this crisis because she cares about your happiness. She did it because she can't control Amara the way she controls you. As Kemi walked away, Chike's phone rang again. This time, it was Amara. Chike. Her voice was hoarse from crying. Please, can we just talk? There's so much I need to tell you, and not just about the medical stuff. About us. About what I thought our marriage would be. Where are you? At my parents' house. But I can come wherever you are. Please, just don't make any decisions until we talk. Please. Before he could answer, another call came through, his mother, the caller ID showing her imperious expression from her last birthday party. The Okafor family home in Ikoyi stood like a fortress of respectability, its high walls and security gates designed to keep both intruders and gossip at bay. Chike's hands trembled as he pressed the intercom button at 3 p.m., the afternoon sun beating down mercilessly on his shoulders. Who is it? The security guard's voice crackled through the speaker. Chike Adebayo. I'm here to see my wife. The gate swung open with a mechanical groan, revealing a driveway lined with carefully manicured palm trees and hibiscus bushes that screamed old money and medical success. Dr. Emeka Okafor's Mercedes S-Class sat beside his wife's BMW X7, symbols of a family that had never known financial want. Amara was waiting on the front steps when he parked, still wearing the simple cotton dress she changed into after removing her wedding gown. Without makeup, her face looked younger but more fragile, the kind of vulnerability that made Chike remember why he'd fallen in love with her in the first place. You came, she whispered, not moving from her spot on the stone steps. We need to talk. His voice sounded stranger than intended, formal and distant. The house's interior was a museum of Dr. Okafor's achievements, medical degrees, humanitarian awards, photos with politicians and international health officials. But today, the usually immaculate space felt oppressive, weighted down with secrets and shame. Should we go to your room? Chike asked. Amara shook her head. The living room. I want to do this properly, not hiding upstairs like a child who's been sent to her room for punishment. They sat on opposite ends of the Italian leather sofa, the same couch where they'd had their first serious conversation about marriage 18 months ago. Then, the future had seemed bright and uncomplicated. Now, the space between them felt like an ocean. I read my mother's files, Chike began. The medical records, the PI reports, all of it. Amara's face went white. Your mother hired a private investigator 6 months ago. She's been planning this whole thing since I proposed. He pulled out his phone and showed her the photos Kemi had sent, images of Adoni meeting with the PI, bank transfers, email exchanges. She orchestrated everything. The timing, the social media posts, even having that on your family ready as backup. Relief and anger poured across Amara's features. Relief that her husband now understood the manipulation involved, anger that his mother had violated her privacy so completely. How does that make you feel? She asked quietly. Used. Manipulated. Angry. He leaned forward. But also confused, because the condition is still real, isn't it? You've still been hiding this from me for 2 years. The million-dollar question hung between them like a sword. Everything else, his mother's scheming, the family politics, the public humiliation, was secondary to this fundamental breach of trust. Yes, Amara said simply. I've been hiding it because I was terrified of losing you. But you lost me anyway. The hiding itself became the problem. Amara stood and walked to the window overlooking her mother's rose garden, where red and white blooms climbed trellises in the fading afternoon light. Do you know what it's like to be ashamed of your own body every single day? To plan every aspect of your life around a secret? Tell me. I haven't slept naturally in years. Every night, I take medication that makes me groggy the next morning. I set alarms every 2 hours to wake up and check if I need to change sheets. I carry spare underwear in my purse everywhere I go. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, as if releasing the words was lifting a weight from her shoulders. The night before our wedding, I took triple the normal dose of my medication and wore adult diapers under my nightgown. I thought if I could just get through the honeymoon, I could figure out how to tell you gradually. Chike tried to imagine the level of anxiety that would drive someone to such measures on their wedding night. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me before we married? Amara turned from the window, tears streaming down her cheeks. Because every man I'd ever dated left when they found out. Not immediately, they'd stick around for a few weeks, trying to be understanding, but eventually the reality of it would wear them down. How many others knew? 3. Over 8 years of dating. The first one joked that he wasn't interested in changing diapers until he had actual babies. The second tried to be supportive but started avoiding sleeping over, making excuses about work or family obligations. The third lasted longest, 6 months, but eventually admitted he couldn't get over the ick factor. Each revelation felt like a physical blow. Chike realized he was learning more about his wife's inner life in this conversation than he had in 2 years of dating. What exactly causes it? Stress, anxiety, psychological trauma, it's complicated. The doctors think it started during my surgical residency when I was working 18-hour days and sleeping in supply closets. The stress broke something in my brain's connection to my bladder control. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But the deeper cause is probably growing up in this house. Your parents. Papa's expectations. Nothing was ever good enough, not perfect grades, not medical school acceptance, not surgical residency placement. I internalized his perfectionism until it literally made me sick. Amara's voice carried years of therapy gained insight. The bedwetting is my body's rebellion against impossible standards. Dr. Okafor chose that moment to enter the living room, his presence immediately commanding attention. At 65, he remained an imposing figure whose approval meant everything in Lagos medical circles. Chike, he said formally. I understand there are complications in your marriage. Papa, please. Let him answer, Amara. This concerns our family's reputation as much as yours. Chike stood, recognizing the power dynamic at play. This was a man accustomed to being deferred to, whose word carried weight in government health policies and international medical conferences. Dr. Okafor, with respect, this is between Amara and me. Is it? When my daughter's marriage fails after one night, affecting both our family standing in society. Dr. Okafor's tone grew colder. Your mother has made it clear she considers this marriage invalid due to Amara's condition. She's threatened to expose our family's business dealings unless we cooperate with an annulment. The room fell silent except for the grandfather clock's steady ticking. 3 generations of family dynamics were colliding in this moment: Dr. Okafor's patriarchal authority, Amara's desperate need for acceptance, and Chike's realization that he was being used as a pawn in a larger game. What business dealings? Chike asked. Dr. Okafor's jaw tightened. 5 years ago, during a pharmaceutical shortage, my company imported generic medications without full documentation. It was legal gray area, intended to help poor communities access affordable treatment. Your mother is threatening to frame it as criminal fraud. So everyone's being blackmailed, Chike said quietly. Your mother is protecting her son's reputation, Dr. Okafor replied. As any parent would. By destroying mine. Amara's voice cracked. The front door opened with a bang, interrupting the tense conversation. Mrs. Okafor rushed in, her usually perfect composure shattered. Emeka. Amara. You need to see this immediately, it's all over social media. She held up her phone, displaying a Twitter thread that was rapidly going viral. Exclusive: Lagos Tech CEO's wife's wedding night medical emergency exposed. Sources reveal shocking details about prominent families' hidden shame. Thread 1/15 inch. The thread included blurry photos of medical documents, speculation about family secrets, and increasingly vicious commentary from Lagos social media users who smelled blood in the water. 15,000 retweets already, Mrs. Okafor said, her voice barely above a whisper. The story is spreading faster than we can contain it. Chike's phone exploded with notifications, calls from business partners, messages from investors, alerts from his company's PR team. His worst fear was materializing in real time. But as he watched Amara collapse onto the sofa, her face buried in her hands as she sobbed, something shifted inside him. His mother had won. She'd successfully destroyed any chance of a quiet resolution to this crisis. The question now was whether he would let her destroy his wife in the process. His phone rang again. This time, it was his mother. "Chike, darling, I assume you've seen the social media situation. We need to act quickly now, file the annulment papers before this gets any worse. Meet me at the lawyer's office in an hour." The law offices of Okonkwo and Associates occupied an entire floor of a gleaming tower on Victoria Island, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Lagos Harbour. At 6 p.m., the building was mostly empty except for security guards and the occasional executive working late into the evening. Chike sat in the plush waiting area, staring at the annulment papers spread across the coffee table like accusatory documents. Each page represented a different way to legally erase his marriage: fraud, concealment of material facts, inability to consummate the union. The language was clinical, designed to reduce love and trust to contractual obligations. Mr. Adebayo. Barrister Okonkwo emerged from his office, a distinguished man in his 60s whose reputation for discretion made him the go-to lawyer for Lagos high society scandals. "Your mother is waiting inside." Adoni Adebayo sat behind Okonkwo's mahogany desk as if it were her throne, her gold jewelry catching the artificial lights from the crystal chandeliers overhead. The social media crisis had only strengthened her resolve. If anything, she looked more confident than ever. "Chike, finally. We need to sign these papers before the situation gets any worse." She gestured to identical documents laid out on the desk. The story is trending on Twitter with hashtags #Lagos Bedwetting Bride and #Wedding Night Disaster. Every minute we delay gives it more time to spread. Chike picked up his phone and scrolled through the social media chaos. The story had evolved beyond simple gossip into a feeding frenzy of speculation, memes, and increasingly cruel commentary about Amara's condition. Someone had created fake medical reports with exaggerated details. Another account was selling inside information about the Okafor family's alleged cover-up. This is what happens when you marry someone who lies about fundamental aspects of their character, Adoni continued, her voice carrying the satisfaction of someone whose predictions had come true. "Sign the papers, and we can control the narrative. Frame it as discovering irreconcilable differences rather than this embarrassment." Barrister Okonkwo cleared his throat diplomatically. The annulment can be processed within 72 hours if both parties cooperate. Given the circumstances, concealment of a medical condition that affects marital relations, it's legally straightforward. "What about Amara's consent?" Chike asked. "Given the fraud involved, her consent isn't required," Okonkwo replied smoothly. "The concealment of material facts invalidates the marriage contract from the beginning." Chike stared at the papers, each signature line representing a point of no return. Once signed, there would be no going back, no possibility of rebuilding trust or working through their problems together. His phone buzzed with a text from Kemi, airport. "Private jet. Amara's leaving Nigeria tonight. Says she can't handle the public humiliation. This might be your last chance." The words hit him like ice water. Amara was running, not just from Lagos gossip, but from him, from their marriage, from everything they'd built together. "Mama, what if I don't sign?" Adonis' expression hardened. Then you'll live with the consequences. Your company's investors are already asking questions. The tech conference next month. They are reconsidering your keynote speech. Your political aspirations. Dead in the water. But what if she gets treatment? What if we walk through this privately? Walk through what? A grown woman who pisses herself nightly. Adonis' voice rose. Do you think this stays private in Lagos? Do you think people will ever see you the same way? The office's air conditioning hummed overhead, but the atmosphere felt suffocating. Everything Chike had worked for, his company, his reputation, his future, hung in the balance. There's something else, Adonis continued, producing another envelope. The private investigator uncovered additional information about your wife's stability. Inside were therapy session notes from Amara's treatment in Boston, somehow obtained through the same illegal channels as her medical records. The notes detailed her struggles with perfectionism, anxiety, and what one therapist described as deep-seated fear of abandonment rooted in childhood emotional neglect. She's psychologically damaged, Chike. This bedwetting is just a symptom of larger problems. Do you want to spend your life managing someone else's mental health issues? Chike read the therapy notes, each page revealing layers of pain his wife had never shared with him. But instead of disgust, he felt something unexpected, protectiveness. These weren't the ravings of an unstable person, but the careful work of someone trying to heal from trauma. One note in particular caught his attention. Patient expresses deep love for fiancé but fears that revealing her condition will result in abandonment, as has happened in previous relationships. Recommended gradual disclosure in supportive environment after marriage, when emotional security is established. She was trying to protect our relationship, he said quietly. She was trying to trap you into a marriage based on lies, Adonis countered. There's a difference. Barrister Okonkwo glanced at his expensive watch. Mr. Adebayo, I have another appointment in 30 minutes. If we are going to proceed, give me a moment. Chike walked to the windows overlooking Lagos Harbor, where container ships moved slowly through the darkening water. Below, the city's 10 million residents were going about their evening routines, most of them blissfully unaware of the personal drama unfolding in this elegant office. His phone rang. Dr. Amara Okafor's number appeared on the screen. Chike. I need to speak with you urgently. It's about Amara. What about her? She's at Murtala Muhammad Airport. Booked a flight to London with no return date. She says she can't stay in Nigeria after this humiliation. Dr. Okafor's voice carried a father's desperation. She's not just running from the gossip, she's running from you. She thinks you'll never forgive her. The words hit harder than any of his mother's threats or social media commentary. Somewhere in Lagos traffic, his wife was driving toward an airport, convinced that their marriage was irreparable. What gate? Chike asked. Terminal 2, British Airways flight to Heathrow, departing at 11 p.m. But Chike. He hung up and turned back to his mother, who was watching him with shrewd eyes. The airport, I assume, she said coolly. Playing the romantic hero. Running after the damsel in distress. Something like that. And when the romance fades. When you're lying awake at night in wet sheets. When your business partners make jokes behind your back. When your children ask why mommy wears diapers. Each question was designed to puncture his resolve, to force him to confront the practical realities of staying married to someone with Amara's condition. But as he looked at the annulment papers, Chike realized something fundamental had shifted in his thinking. Maybe love isn't about finding someone perfect, he said slowly. Maybe it's about choosing someone whose imperfections you can live with. Pretty words don't change ugly realities. No, but they change how you deal with those realities. He picked up the annulment papers and walked toward the door. I'm not signing this tonight. Chike. Adonis' voice cracked like a whip. If you walk out that door, Don't expect my support when this marriage falls apart. Don't expect my help rebuilding your reputation when society turns its back on you." He paused in the doorway, one hand on the brass handle. "Mama, you spent 6 months planning to destroy my wife's reputation and manipulate me into an annulment. Why should I expect your support for anything I actually want?" The elevator doors closed on his mother's shocked expression, leaving him alone with the weight of his decision. By choosing to go to the airport instead of signing the papers, he was gambling everything: his business, his reputation, his relationship with his family. But as Lagos traffic swallowed his taxi, Chike realized he'd rather risk everything for love than sacrifice love for everything else. His phone buzzed with a final text from Kemi, Gate 12. "She's crying. Hurry." Terminal 2 of Murtala Muhammad Airport buzzed with the controlled chaos of Lagos's international gateway, travelers wheeling oversized suitcases, families saying tearful goodbyes, businessmen talking rapidly into phones while navigating security lines. The air conditioning struggled against the humid night, creating a perpetual fog on windows overlooking the tarmac where planes sat like sleeping giants under harsh floodlights. Chike arrived at 9:47 p.m., his shirt soaked with sweat from fighting through Lagos traffic that had tested even his taxi driver's legendary patience. Security guards initially blocked his path at the international departures entrance until he explained he needed to reach his wife before her flight. "Gate 12, sir, but boarding has already begun," the guard said, checking his watch. "British Airways to London, you'd better hurry." The terminal's long corridors seemed to stretch endlessly as Chike ran, dodging luggage carts and slow-moving passengers. His expensive Italian leather shoes, chosen carefully for the lawyer's meeting, slipped on the polished floors with each desperate stride. Gate 12 appeared ahead, its seating area nearly empty except for a few stragglers waiting for the final boarding call. And there, in the far corner with her back to the crowds, sat Amara. She changed into traveling clothes, dark jeans and a loose sweater that made her look younger and more vulnerable. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and even from a distance, Chike could see her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. "Amara." Her name came out as barely a whisper as he approached. She turned, her eyes red and swollen from crying. The makeup she'd worn to hide her distress had long since been wiped away, leaving her face raw and honest in a way that reminded him of their first morning together, when she'd looked beautiful and natural in his apartment's golden sunlight. "You came," she said, the same words she'd spoken that afternoon at her parents' house, but with different inflection, surprise instead of hope. "I came." He sat in the empty chair beside her, close enough to smell her familiar perfume mixed with the salt of tears. "Don't get on that plane." "Why not?" "So I can stay and watch my life become a meme. So I can see you look at me with disgust every morning." Her voice was steady now, the decision to leave having given her a kind of peace. "It's better this way." "Cleaner." The gate agent announced final boarding for British Airways Flight 083 to London Heathrow. Around them, the last passengers gathered their belongings and queued for the jet bridge. "I didn't sign the annulment papers," Chike said. Amara's head snapped toward him. "What?" "I walked out of the lawyer's office. Told my mother I wasn't signing anything tonight." He pulled out his phone and showed her the dozens of missed calls from Adoni. "She's been calling non-stop for the past hour. But the social media thing, your reputation. Will recover or it won't. But I'll never recover from letting you walk away without fighting for us." Amara stared at him as if he were speaking a foreign language. "You don't understand what staying with me means. The bedwetting isn't going away, Chike. I've been dealing with this for years. It's not a temporary condition that will resolve with the right medication or therapy." "I know." He reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. "I read all your medical records. Every consultation, every failed treatment, every therapy session note my mother's private investigator stole." The boarding line was moving quickly now, passengers disappearing into the jet bridge that would carry them away from Lagos and its suffocating social pressures. Final call for passengers on British Airways Flight 083 to London Heathrow. Final call. I have to go, Amara said, but she didn't move from her seat. No, you don't. You want to go because it feels easier than staying and fighting for our marriage. Fighting for what? A marriage that's already the laughingstock of Lagos. Her voice carried all the exhaustion of someone who had spent years hiding, who was tired of the effort it took to maintain her secret. A marriage between two people who love each other enough to walk through difficult things. Amara laughed bitterly. Love. You couldn't even look at me this morning. You ran out of our hotel room like I was contagious. The accusation hung between them like a physical barrier. She was right, his initial reaction had been pure disgust and shock, exactly what she'd feared and experienced with previous relationships. You're right, Chike admitted. I reacted badly. I was shocked and embarrassed and angry that you'd hidden something so significant. But I was also manipulated by my mother, who spent months planning exactly how to make me react that way. He pulled out his phone and showed her Kemi's evidence, photos of Adoni meeting with the private investigator, bank transfers, email exchanges planning the social media campaign. Your mother orchestrated this. Every detail. The timing, the social media post, having the annulment papers ready. She wanted to make sure I'd be too shocked and too publicly embarrassed to think rationally. Amara studied the evidence, her expression shifting from hurt to anger to something resembling understanding. She really hates me. She hates that she can't control you the way she controls everyone else in our family. Chike squeezed her hand. The question is, do we let her win? The gate agent made one last announcement before closing the jet bridge door. The plane to London would leave with or without Amara, but either choice would define the rest of their lives. What exactly are you asking me, Chike? Come home with me. Not to your parents' house, not to a hotel, but home. To our apartment that we picked out together, with the furniture we chose, where we plan to start our married life. And then what? Pretend this never happened. Hope people forget. Then we deal with it together. We figure out practical solutions, waterproof mattress covers, separate beds if necessary, whatever makes you feel secure and comfortable. We find doctors who specialize in adult incontinence, try new treatments, explore options we haven't considered. Amara's tears started fresh, but they look different now, less hopeless, more overwhelmed by possibility. Most importantly, Chike continued, we stop hiding. If people want to gossip about our private medical situation, let them. Their opinions don't pay our bills or warm our bed. Easy to say, harder to live with. Maybe. But I'd rather live with difficult truths than easy lies. The jet bridge retracted from the plane with a mechanical whine. Flight 083 was preparing to taxi away from the gate, taking with it Amara's escape route from Lagos and its judgmental society. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what specifically? That you grow tired of dealing with this. That you start to resent me for complicating your life. That you wish you'd married someone normal. Chike stood and pulled her to her feet, his hands framing her face the way he had during their wedding vows just 36 hours earlier. Amara, normal is overrated. I fell in love with your intelligence, your compassion, your dedication to helping others. I fell in love with how you laugh at bad movies and cry during insurance commercials. I fell in love with your ambition and your vulnerability and your terrible singing voice in the shower. Despite everything, she smiled slightly at the last comment. None of that changes because you have a medical condition. None of that becomes less valuable because your bladder doesn't work perfectly. The plane was moving now, pulling away from the gate and heading toward the runway. Through the terminal windows, they watched it join the queue of aircraft waiting for takeoff clearance. So what happens now? Amara asked. Now we go home and start figuring out how to be married for real, not the fantasy version we planned during our engagement, but the complicated, imperfect, real-life version that includes medical challenges and family drama and social media gossip. And your mother? Will have to accept that I'm an adult who makes his own decisions about his own marriage. Amara looked at the departing plane one last time, then back at her husband. Okay. Let's go home. But as they walked toward the terminal exit, Chike's phone exploded with notifications. The latest social media development was trending worldwide. #Lagos Bedwetting bride had been picked up by international gossip blogs, turning their private crisis into global entertainment. Second thoughts? Amara asked, seeing his expression. Never, he replied, but the incoming storm of international attention would test that resolve sooner than either of them expected. The apartment building's lobby in Banana Island buzzed with unusual activity at midnight. Paparazzi had somehow gotten past the usually impeccable security, their camera flashes creating a strobe light effect through the floor-to-ceiling windows. News vans lined the street outside, their satellite dishes reaching skyward like mechanical flowers seeking signal strength. Jesus Christ, Chike muttered as their taxi pulled up to the building. How did they find out where we live? Inside the lobby, their building manager, Mr. Adeyemi, paced frantically while security guards attempted to maintain order. The marble floors echoed with the sound of camera shutters and shouted questions in multiple languages: English, Yoruba, French, even what sounded like German. Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo. A reporter thrust a microphone toward them the moment they entered. Can you comment on the international attention your story is receiving? CNN International has picked up the story, and there's speculation about a Netflix documentary deal. No comment, Chike said firmly, positioning himself between Amara and the cameras. But the damage was already being done. Flash after flash captured Amara's tear-stained face and exhausted posture, images that would be analyzed and dissected across social media platforms worldwide. The elevator ride to their 20th floor penthouse felt eternal, with Amara leaning against the mirrored wall as if she might collapse at any moment. This is insane, she whispered. It's like we're criminals or celebrities or something. We're neither. We're just people dealing with a private medical issue that someone decided to make public. Their apartment, purchased 6 months ago as their dream home, with its panoramic views of Lagos Harbour and carefully chosen furniture representing their combined taste, felt different now. The sanctuary they'd created together had been invaded by public scrutiny, the privacy they'd counted on shattered by social media's global reach. Chike's phone rang immediately upon entering. His business partner, Ton Okafor, no relation to Amara's family, appeared on the caller ID. Chike, thank God you're answering. We have a crisis situation. 3 of our major investors have called emergency meetings for tomorrow morning. The Singapore deal is on hold pending resolution of reputational concerns. What the hell is happening? Through their living room windows, more news vans were arriving, setting up what appeared to be a permanent encampment on the street below. It's complicated, turned. Family drama that got blown out of proportion. Blown out of proportion. Bro, you're trending on Twitter in 6 countries. There are memes about your wife on Instagram with millions of views. Forbes Africa is running a piece about how personal scandals affect tech company valuations. The global reach of their crisis was staggering. What had started as Lagos gossip had metastasized into worldwide entertainment, fed by social media algorithms that rewarded outrageous content with increased visibility. Give me 24 hours, Chike said. I'll handle this. 24 hours. The board is meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow to discuss whether you should step down as CEO temporarily until this blows over. After hanging up, Chike found Amara standing in their bedroom doorway, staring at the king-sized bed they'd chosen together during happier times. The mattress was still perfectly made, untouched since their wedding night disaster. I can't sleep there, she said quietly. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. We'll figure it out. Separate bedrooms, different arrangements, whatever you need to feel comfortable. It's not about comfort anymore, Chike. It's about the fact that our private bedroom has become the subject of international speculation. She picked up her phone and scrolled through social media. Look at this, there's a hashtag called #WetBedChallenge where people are making jokes about adult bedwetting. There are fake medical reports circulating with my name on them. Someone created a parody song called "Piece Yourself to Sleep." The cruelty of internet culture was on full display, turning someone's medical condition into entertainment for millions of strangers. The anonymity of social media had unleashed a level of viciousness that felt almost biblical in its scope. We could sue, Chike suggested weakly. Sue who? The entire internet. Amara laughed bitterly. This is bigger than us now. We're not people anymore, we're a story, a meme, a cautionary tale about keeping secrets in relationships. A sharp knock at the door interrupted them. Through the peephole, Chike saw his mother standing in the hallway, her usual composed expression replaced by something resembling panic. Mama, what are you doing here? Cleaning up the mess you created by not signing those papers when you had the chance, Adonis said, pushing past him into the apartment. She looked around the space with obvious distaste, as if the international scandal had contaminated the furniture. The mess I created? Yes, you. By choosing sentiment over sense, by letting your emotions override practical considerations. Adonis turned to Amara, her expression cold as Arctic wind. And you, look what your selfishness has done to my family's reputation. We are being portrayed as backward Africans who can't handle modern medical issues. My import business is being investigated because of the attention this scandal has brought to our family. Your import business is being investigated because you've been bribing government officials for years, Amara replied quietly, her medical training evident in her ability to remain calm under pressure. Adonis' face flushed with rage. How dare you? I dare because I've seen the evidence. Bank transfers, email communications, records of illegal medication imports. Your son's private investigator was very thorough, too thorough. While digging up dirt on my family, he accidentally uncovered your criminal activities. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Through their windows, camera flashes from the street below created an eerie light show, as if the building itself was under assault. You have no proof. Actually, I do. Kemi's voice came from the apartment's entrance, where she stood with a laptop bag and the determined expression of an investigative journalist who'd found her biggest story. Good evening, Mrs. Adebayo. I think it's time we discussed your role in orchestrating this international crisis. The laptop opened to reveal a comprehensive presentation, bank records, email exchanges, recorded phone conversations, and a detailed timeline showing how Adonis had systematically planned to destroy Amara's reputation. 6 months of preparation, Kemi narrated, clicking through slides like a prosecutor presenting evidence. Hiring private investigators, bribing hospital clerks, planning social media campaigns, coordinating with gossip bloggers. You didn't just manipulate your son, you orchestrated an international character assassination. This is ridiculous. Is it? Because I have recordings of you offering payment to 3 different bloggers to amplify the story once it broke. I have email exchanges with social media influencers who were paid to create and spread memes. You didn't just want to destroy Amara's reputation, you wanted to monetize it. The revelation was staggering. Adonis hadn't just been protecting her family's reputation, she'd been profiting from its destruction, turning her daughter-in-law's medical condition into a business opportunity. How much? Chike asked quietly. How much did you make from destroying my wife? The influencer campaign alone generated $50,000 in sponsored content fees, Kemi replied, consulting her notes. The exclusive story rights to 3 gossip blogs netted another $30,000. And there's a reality TV production company that's already paid her an advance for the inside story of the scandal. Chike stared at his mother as if seeing her for the first time. The woman who had raised him, who had claimed to be protecting his reputation, had been profiting from his humiliation. Get out, he said quietly. Chike, you don't understand the full situation. Get out. His voice echoed through the apartment, probably audible to the reporters camped outside. Get out of my home, get out of my life, and if you ever contact my wife again, I'll have you arrested for harassment. As Adoni gathered her purse and stalked toward the door, she turned back with one final threat: this isn't over. You think you can humiliate me and get away with it? I have connections, resources, influence. I can destroy both of you. Actually, you can't, Kemi said pleasantly. Because tomorrow morning, I'm publishing a full exposé about your activities. Every payment, every bribe, every illegal scheme. By the time I'm finished, the only thing you'll be influencing is your prison cellmate. The door slammed behind Adoni, leaving the apartment eerily quiet despite the chaos continuing outside. Is it really over? Amara asked. The beginning of the end, Kemi replied. But there's one more thing you both need to see. The laptop screen glowed in the darkened living room as Kemi pulled up a new folder labeled, The Real Story. Outside, the media circus continued, but inside the apartment, a different kind of revelation was about to unfold. Before we discuss your next steps, you both need to understand how deep this conspiracy goes, Kemi said, her journalist instincts in full display. Your mother-in-law didn't just target Amara randomly. This was personal, and it goes back years. She clicked to a series of photographs from what appeared to be a medical conference in Abuja, dated 3 years earlier. Dr. Amara Okafor stood at a podium delivering a presentation, while in the audience, barely visible in the back row, sat Chike Adebayo. Your father exposed a pharmaceutical fraud scheme in 2022, Kemi explained to Amara. Remember the contaminated blood pressure medications that killed 12 people in Kano State? Purpose investigation led to criminal charges against 3 companies, including one that was a major supplier for Adoni's import business. The implications crystallized like ice forming on glass. This wasn't about protecting family reputation or maintaining social standing. This was revenge. She lost millions when those contracts were cancelled, Kemi continued. Her business nearly collapsed. She's been planning payback against our family ever since. Chike sank onto their Italian leather sofa, the same piece they'd chosen together during happier times when their biggest concern was whether it matched the dining room chairs. So when I started dating Amara, she saw an opportunity for the perfect revenge. Marry into the enemy family, then destroy them from the inside. Kemi's presentation continued with more evidence, private investigator reports that went far beyond medical records, financial surveillance of the entire Okafor family, even attempts to bribe Amara's former colleagues for embarrassing stories. There's more, Kemi said grimly. The private investigator found something interesting while digging through medical records. Amara, you weren't the only one with bedwetting issues in the files he accessed. A new document appeared on screen, medical records from a private clinic in London, dated 15 years earlier. The patient name read Chike Adebayo, and the diagnosis was the same, adult nocturnal enuresis. Your mother-in-law has the same condition, Kemi announced. Has had it for years, apparently triggered by stress during her divorce from Chike's father. The difference is, she had enough money to manage it privately, expensive treatments, discreet medical care, staff who signed confidentiality agreements. Chike's world tilted on its axis. His mother, who had spent months orchestrating this humiliation campaign based on Amara's bedwetting, suffered from the exact same condition. That's impossible, he whispered. I would have known. Would you? When was the last time you spent the night at your mother's house? When did you ever see her bedroom, her private medical appointments, her late-night routines? Kemi's questions hit like surgical strikes. She's been hiding it just as carefully as Amara, except she had the resources to hide it completely. Amara stared at the medical records with a mixture of shock and recognition. The medications listed here, I've tried half of them. The specialist she consulted, I've seen 3 of the same doctors. So this whole campaign wasn't just about revenge against your family, Chike said slowly. It was about destroying someone who reminded her of her own shame. Psychological projection at its finest, Kemi agreed. She couldn't accept her own condition, so she channeled all that self-hatred into destroying someone else who had the same problem. The revelation recontextualized everything, every cruel comment about Amara's weakness, every demand for secrecy, every threat about social standing. Adoni hadn't been protecting her family's reputation, she'd been protecting herself from confronting her own identical struggles. How did you get these records? Amara asked. The same private investigator your mother-in-law hired, Kemi smiled grimly. Turns out, when you pay someone to break into medical databases, they don't necessarily limit themselves to your specified targets. He kept copies of everything interesting he found, including files on his clients. Chike's phone buzzed with another call from his business partner. The Singapore investors were threatening to pull out entirely unless he could resolve the reputational crisis within 48 hours. His company, built over 5 years of 18-hour days and careful relationship building, was crumbling in real time. What do we do with this information? He asked. We have options, Kemi replied. Option 1, we go public with everything. Expose Adoni's hypocrisy, a revenge scheme, her own medical condition. Turn the tables completely. That would destroy her, Amara said quietly. The same way she tried to destroy you, Kemi pointed out. Sometimes justice looks like giving people exactly what they tried to give others. Option 2. Chike asked. We use it as leverage. Offer to keep her secrets in exchange for her stopping the attacks on your family. A cold war instead of nuclear warfare. And option 3. Kemi closed the laptop and looked at both of them seriously. You take control of your own narrative. Stop letting other people tell your story. Go public yourselves, not with revenge or exposés, but with honesty about what you've learned about love, marriage, and dealing with medical challenges together. The idea was terrifying and liberating simultaneously. Instead of hiding from the global attention, they could use it to share something meaningful about resilience, acceptance, and choosing love over perfection. A lot of people are dealing with medical issues they're ashamed of, Amara said thoughtfully. Adult incontinence affects millions of people worldwide, but nobody talks about it because of the stigma. And a lot of marriages face unexpected challenges, Chike added. The fairy tale version of love doesn't prepare you for real-life problems. Outside, car horns blared as more news crews arrived, drawn by the international attention their story was receiving. Social media continued its relentless cycle of outrage and entertainment, but inside the apartment, something was shifting. If we are going to do this, Amara said, we do it on our terms. No victimization, no revenge, no playing into the drama. Just honest conversation about dealing with difficult things together. And your mother? Chike asked Kemi. The exposé about Adoni's activities gets published either way. She committed multiple crimes while orchestrating this situation. That's not personal revenge, that's public accountability. Chike stood and walked to the windows overlooking Lagos Harbour, where dawn was beginning to paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The city below was waking up to another day of gossip and speculation about his marriage, but for the first time since their wedding night, he felt like he had some control over the situation. Okay, he said, turning back to his wife and sister-in-law. Let's tell our story. But first, we need to have one more conversation with someone who's been pulling strings behind the scenes. Who? Amara asked. The private investigator. If he's been collecting information on everyone involved, including my mother, I want to know what else he's discovered. And I want to make sure he understands that his services are no longer needed by anyone in this situation. His phone was already ringing with another crisis call from his business, but for the first time in days, Chike felt ready to face whatever came next. The truth, as they say, has a way of setting people free, even when freedom looks nothing like what you expected. The private investigator's office occupied the third floor of a nondescript building in Ikeja, its windows tinted dark enough to hide the activities within. At 10 a.m., Lagos traffic hummed below while upstairs, Marcus Okoro, the man who had started this entire crisis, sat across from Chike and Amara with the relaxed confidence of someone holding all the cards. "I wondered when you'd come to see me directly," Marcus said, his slight build and scholarly appearance making him look more like a university professor than someone who specialized in destroying lives. "Your mother-in-law paid me very well, but I always suspected this situation would eventually require additional negotiations." The office walls were lined with filing cabinets that presumably contained secrets about half of Lagos's elite. In a city where information was currency, Marcus dealt in the most valuable denominations. "We know about the medical records," Chike said directly. "Both my wife's and my mother's. The question is, what else do you know?" Marcus smiled and opened a thick folder on his desk. "Quite a lot, actually. Your mother hired me to investigate the Okafor family, but she neglected to specify that I should limit my investigation to them. Professional thoroughness led me to investigate everyone involved, including her." Inside the folder were documents that painted a comprehensive picture of corruption, fraud, and manipulation spanning both families and several business associates. Your mother's pharmaceutical import business, for instance. Beyond the bribes and tax evasion, she's been importing counterfeit medications from China and selling them as genuine European products. The markup is enormous, nearly 400% profit margins. "People could die from counterfeit medications," Amara said, her medical training making the implications immediately clear. "3 people already have," Marcus replied matter-of-factly. "Diabetics who received fake insulin with incorrect dosages. The deaths were attributed to complications from diabetes, but I have the import records showing the medications came from your mother's suppliers." The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning and distant Lagos traffic. What had started as a personal vendetta had escalated into something approaching manslaughter. "You have proof of this?" Chike asked, though his voice suggested he didn't really want the answer. "Bills of lading, lab reports showing the medications contained the wrong active ingredients, bank transfers showing payments to Chinese manufacturers who aren't licensed to produce insulin." Marcus spread the documents across his desk like a dealer revealing a winning hand. "Your mother didn't just want revenge against the Okafor family, she needed to discredit Dr. Emeka before he could investigate her business practices." "Papa's pharmaceutical fraud investigation," Amara said, pieces clicking together. She knew he was getting close to exposing her operation. Very close. Dr. Okafor had already submitted preliminary findings to the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control. If his investigation had continued, your mother would be facing criminal charges for importing counterfeit medications that killed people. Marcus pulled out another file, this one containing correspondence between Adoni and various government officials. "She's been paying bribes to delay the investigation, but those officials are getting nervous about the international attention this scandal has brought. Nobody wants to be associated with corruption when CNN is watching." The scope of Adoni's crimes was staggering. What they'd assumed was petty family revenge was actually a criminal conspiracy involving fraud, bribery, and negligent homicide. "What do you want from us?" Chike asked. "Nothing from you specifically. But your mother owes me substantial money for services rendered, and she's been avoiding my calls since this situation went international." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Bad publicity makes it difficult for someone in my profession to collect outstanding debts." "How much does she owe you?" 200,000 naira for the original investigation, plus another 100,000 for the social media campaign coordination. She promised a bonus if the plan succeeded in destroying your marriage. The casual way Marcus discussed orchestrating their personal crisis was chilling. To him, their pain was just another business transaction. "Here's what I'm proposing," Marcus continued. "I turn over all my files on your mother's criminal activities to the appropriate authorities. In exchange, you pay her outstanding debt to me, and I disappear from this situation entirely. That's blackmail, Amara said. No, that's business. Blackmail would be if I threatened to release information unless you paid me. I'm offering to cooperate with law enforcement regardless. The payment is simply to clear a legitimate business debt. Chike's phone buzzed with yet another crisis call from his company. The board meeting about his future as CEO was starting in 2 hours, and 3 major investors had already indicated they were reconsidering their partnerships. Even if we agree to this, Chike said, it doesn't solve our immediate problem. My business is collapsing, my wife is an international meme, and we are trapped in our own home by reporters. Actually, I might be able to help with that too. Marcus opened his laptop and pulled up what appeared to be a comprehensive media strategy document. I've been monitoring the global response to your story, and there's an interesting development. The screen showed social media analytics, news coverage patterns, and public sentiment analysis from around the world. While the initial response had been mockery and gossip, something was shifting. Medical advocacy groups are starting to rally around your wife, Marcus explained. Organizations that deal with adult incontinence, anxiety disorders, medical shaming, they're using your story to start conversations about stigma and acceptance. He pulled up tweets and posts from around the world, people sharing their own stories of medical conditions they'd hidden from partners, families who had walked through similar challenges, medical professionals discussing the psychological impact of chronic conditions. The narrative is changing from woman lies about embarrassing condition to couple overcomes medical challenge and family manipulation. If you play this correctly, you could turn your greatest vulnerability into your greatest strength. How? Amara asked. By telling your own story first, before anyone else can frame it for you. There's a producer from CNN International who wants to do a serious documentary about medical stigma in relationships. Not gossip, not scandal, actual journalism about a real issue that affects millions of people. The idea was both terrifying and appealing. Instead of being victims of other people's narratives, they could take control and share their experience on their own terms. What about the criminal charges against your mother? Marcus asked Chike. Are you prepared for that investigation to move forward? Chike thought about the woman who had raised him, who had taught him to be ambitious and successful, who had also orchestrated this elaborate campaign of destruction and profited from his humiliation. She made her choices, he said finally. People died because of her counterfeit medications. That's bigger than family loyalty. Marcus nodded approvingly and began gathering the documents. I'll contact NAFDAC and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission this afternoon. With the evidence I have, she'll be arrested within 48 hours. And the outstanding debt? Amara asked. Consider it our contribution to justice, Chike replied. But we want copies of everything, all the evidence, all the communications, all the records. If we are going to rebuild our lives, we need to understand exactly what happened. As they prepared to leave Marcus's office, the investigator offered one final piece of advice: the international attention will fade eventually, it always does. But the way you handle this crisis will define your marriage for years to come. Choose carefully. Walking back to their car through Ikeja's chaotic streets, Chike and Amara faced a strange new reality. In less than a week, they'd gone from newlyweds to international news subjects to potential advocates for medical acceptance and marriage resilience. Are we really going to do the CNN documentary? Amara asked as they drove back toward their apartment, where reporters still maintained their vigil. Only if you're ready to tell our story the way we want it told, Chike replied. No more letting other people control the narrative. His phone rang again, this time, it was Dr. Amara Okafor. Chike, I just heard from NAFDAC. They are reopening the pharmaceutical fraud investigation based on new evidence. Someone's been feeding them information about counterfeit medications and bribery schemes. His voice carried a mixture of vindication and concern. Do you know anything about this? Yes, sir. We'll explain everything when we see you this evening. But first, Amara and I have a board meeting to attend. It's time to find out if my company is strong enough to survive a CEO with an imperfect personal life. The drive back to Banana Island took them through the heart of Lagos, past markets and offices and schools where millions of people were living their own complicated lives, dealing with their own hidden struggles and family dramas. For the first time since their wedding night, Chike felt like he and Amara were facing those complications together rather than in spite of each other. But the biggest test was still ahead. Could their marriage survive not just the scandal, but the success that might come from turning their pain into purpose? 6 months later, the Lagos skyline glittered in the evening sun as Chike and Amara stood on the balcony of their new apartment in Ikoyi. The Banana Island penthouse had been sold, too many memories and too much media attention, replaced by this quieter space overlooking Tafuwa Balewa Square, where life moved at a more manageable pace. 5 minutes until we go live, called James, the documentary producer, from inside their living room where cameras and lighting equipment transformed their personal space into a television studio. The CNN International special, Love, Lies, and Medical Stigma, a Lagos love story, would air globally in less than an hour. Are you nervous? Amara asked, adjusting the traditional Igbo jewelry she'd chosen to wear, a subtle nod to their cultural heritage that had gotten lost in the international gossip coverage. Terrified, Chike admitted. But not about the interview. About everything else we're announcing tonight. The past 6 months had been a hurricane of change, legal proceedings, and unexpected opportunities. Chike Adebayo was currently serving a 2-year prison sentence for pharmaceutical fraud and conspiracy charges. The counterfeit medication scandal had made international headlines, with 3 families receiving substantial settlements from the liquidation of her business assets. Chike's tech company had survived, barely. The board had voted to keep him as CEO after 2 of the Singapore investors unexpectedly doubled their commitment, impressed by what they called his authentic leadership in crisis. The company's pivot toward healthcare technology solutions had attracted new investors specifically interested in supporting medical accessibility initiatives. Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo, we are ready for the final segment, James called. Inside, the apartment hummed with nervous energy. Kemi sat in the corner operating social media monitoring equipment, tracking global response to the documentary as it aired in different time zones. Dr. Emeka and Mrs. Okafor waited quietly on the sofa, having reconciled with their daughter after months of difficult conversations about family expectations and unconditional love. The past 6 months hadn't been easy. Amara's bedwetting continued, some nights better, some worse, managed now with medical equipment, scheduled bathroom visits, and waterproof bedding that made their situation manageable if not cured. They'd found specialists in Germany who offered new treatment options, though progress was measured in small improvements rather than miraculous cures. More importantly, they'd found their rhythm as a married couple dealing with chronic illness. Separate bedrooms when necessary, shared ones when possible, and always the understanding that love meant accepting each other's limitations while working toward improvement. "We're live in 60 seconds, James announced. The documentary had been a year-long project, following their story from the wedding night crisis through legal proceedings, family reconciliation, and the launch of their new venture, the Adebayo Foundation for Medical Advocacy, focused on reducing stigma around adult incontinence and supporting couples dealing with chronic medical conditions. "Here we go," Amara whispered, squeezing Chike's hand as the cameras resumed rolling. 6 months ago, your wedding night became international news for all the wrong reasons, the interviewer began. Tonight, you're making another announcement that could change everything again. Tell us about the Adebayo Foundation. Chike looked directly into the camera, his voice steady with conviction earned through months of struggle. "We learned that shame grows in silence and healing happens in community. The foundation will provide resources, support groups, and medical advocacy for the millions of people worldwide who deal with conditions like adult incontinence. More than that," Amara added, "we want to change the conversation about what makes a marriage strong. It's not perfection, it's choosing each other even when things get complicated." The interviewer leaned forward. You've also announced a major business expansion. Chike, your company is launching a healthcare technology platform specifically designed around these issues. We are calling it MedSupport, Chike explained. Discreet online consultations, prescription delivery, support community platforms, all designed to help people manage conditions they've been too ashamed to discuss with traditional healthcare providers. And Amara, you're returning to medicine. Telemedicine specifically, focusing on adult patients dealing with incontinence, anxiety disorders, and other conditions that carry social stigma. Too many people suffer in silence because they're embarrassed to seek help. The interview continued for another 20 minutes, covering their legal battles with Adoni, their family reconciliation, and their plans for international expansion of both the foundation and the business platform. But the most powerful moment came at the end, when the interviewer asked about their marriage. Would you do anything differently, knowing what you know now? Amara and Chike exchanged a look that communicated 6 months of late-night conversations, therapy sessions, medical appointments, and gradual healing. I would tell him sooner, Amara said. Not because keeping secrets is always wrong, but because the fear of rejection was worse than the reality of acceptance. And I would listen better, Chike added. Not just to what she was saying, but to what she was afraid to say. Marriage isn't about finding someone perfect, it's about becoming someone who can love imperfectly. As the camera stopped rolling, Kemi looked up from her social media monitoring with a broad smile. Trending worldwide in 12 countries. But not the cruel kind of trending. People are sharing their own stories, thanking you for starting conversations they've been afraid to have. The evening news coverage was overwhelmingly positive. Medical advocacy groups had organized watch parties. Adult incontinence support groups were reporting increased membership inquiries. 3 other couples had contacted CNN about sharing similar stories of hidden medical conditions and marriage resilience. So what now? Dr. Emeka asked as the production crew packed their equipment. You've turned your crisis into a cause, your shame into strength. What's the next chapter? Chike and Amara looked out at the Lagos skyline, where 10 million people were living their own complicated lives, dealing with their own hidden struggles and family dramas. Now we help other people write better endings to their stories, Amara replied. One marriage, one medical condition, one family secret at a time. 6 months later, they would be featured on the cover of Forbes Africa under the headline, From Scandal to Success, How Medical Advocacy Became Big Business. The foundation would expand to 15 countries. MedSupport would be valued at $50 million and attract investment from major healthcare companies worldwide. But that night, sitting on their Ikoyi balcony after the cameras left, they were simply a couple who had learned that love isn't about hiding your weaknesses, it's about finding someone who can help you carry them. Any regrets? Chike asked as they watched the sun set over Lagos. Only that it took a crisis for us to learn how to really trust each other, Amara replied. But maybe some lessons can only be learned the hard way. Their phones buzzed simultaneously with messages from around the world, people sharing their own stories, asking for advice, expressing gratitude for permission to talk about things that had been hidden in shame for years. The bedwetting continued. Some nights were better than others. But it no longer defined their marriage or determined their happiness. Because they had learned the most important truth of all, resilience isn't about avoiding difficulties, it's about facing them together and choosing to grow stronger rather than grow apart. In Lagos, where family reputation had once meant everything, Chike and Amara Adebayo had built something better, a love story based on radical acceptance and the courage to help others find the same. The wedding night that had threatened to destroy them had instead become the foundation of a life dedicated to proving that no secret is too shameful for love to overcome. The end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear that love conquers shame. Comment below with your thoughts on this incredible journey from betrayal to redemption. What would you have done in their situation? Your engagement helps us bring you more powerful stories about resilience and real love.